Hey everybody, welcome back to another Small Business Spotlight. My name is Joby Harlel. I'm here with my good friend and referral partner, Brian Cohen, who is the owner and founder of BPC Consulting Alliance. I apologize for the late start. We had a couple technical difficulties that we had to work through. But Brian's here now, and we're talking through this spotlight of his business. And Brian, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate your taking the time.
Total pleasure being here today, Drew.
So I wanted to get people to know a little more about you and your journey so far as a business owner. So how'd you get started in BPC Consulting and what's your journey
I
been like?
came to DC to go to college and never left. And I was doing this first as a hobby, then a side business, and launched as its own business in 2013. My passion is to help others with their technology to take the geek speak and make it understandable to the average person.
Nice. And I notice the folks that you work with tend to be folks who are, over 45, but you work with anybody, correct?
My business, all things Apple. So yeah, I'll work with anybody, but I find that the people who are most likely to be open-minded and not think they can do everything themselves tend to be 45 plus. I
Got
work with people as young as 15. So whoever is, not everyone is a computer genius. I know I'm not. I'm very specific and narrow in what I do.
Yeah, and I appreciate that too, because you're very specific about, like you said, about Apple products, right? I know folks reach out to you sometimes like, hey, do you do PC? And you're like, no, I don't. But you got referral partners, obviously they can pick that up for you. But what are the top couple things that people come to you for that you find most often than not? What do people come to you, with issues? What's the number one or number two issues that you deal with when people come to
Number
you?
one thing I see on the Mac is my Mac is out of memory. I can't do anything. I can't save a picture. I can do nothing. And I want to chuck my computer out the window. Second thing I see most frequently is I click on something, I go get a cup of coffee, I come back and it still hasn't opened. Those are by far my top two. The one I got this morning is my computer is just going and can't figure out why. In his case, he had dropped it a few times.
Gotcha. Yeah. So how much time is it hardware versus software stuff that you deal with?
Well, my business, all things software, but I see both. In the case this morning, I had to help somebody buy a new computer, then transfer all their information over. We did it in about 2.5 hours, everything from start to finish. I've got another one of those tonight. Most of what I get brought in on is software. My email's not working right. I have all kinds of spyware and unwanted stuff on my computer. And to answer the upfront question, Apple likes to tell people that Macs don't get viruses. Well, the truth of the matter is they'll never get a Windows EXE virus. Do they get malware? Yes. Do they get spyware and unwanted programs and things that are geared towards advertising? Yes.
Gotcha. So when you get someone who's dealing with something like that, what's your process like in terms of do you work with them in person? Do you work with them remotely, or what's your process with working folks like that?
Pre-pandemic, I would go to everybody's home or office to work with them. Probably 90% of what I do now is remote. Today's appointment was in person, but I've done 8 others this week online.
So you can work with anyone across the country, across any English-speaking countries, basically.
Within the United States, generally, that's specifically because the App Store is different in every country, and I don't know what is and is not available in other countries. But yes, I have clients in Spain and the UK. The majority of them are within the United States or its territories.
Gotcha. So when I'm thinking about you and how you've helped clients, because I know some of the stories that the clients have told you, there are two stories that jump out at me. One is a soup story, which I'm sure you'd love to share that if you wouldn't mind.
Is it what story?
They're dropping the phone in the soup.
Oh, I had a lady I worked with about a year ago. She, I believe, had COVID at the time and was cooking chicken soup and dropped her iPhone straight into the soup pot. Because it was an iPhone 6, it did not actually survive that. And I walked her through buying a new iPhone, upgrading it, getting all of her information transferred, and she was happy as can be afterwards.
How do you recover from like a heat slash liquid damage situation like that from an iPhone?
Depends on the model. The newer iPhones are all IP68 water resistant. In that case, that phone was not water resistant. How do you recover? She had an iCloud backup from about 12 hours earlier, and we just simply restored the iCloud backup to her new device. So she lost 12 hours.
Nice. So
The way I set people up, everything backs up to the cloud, so there's no opportunity for you to lose anything, including your text messages.
so I guess of this situation, the lesson there is back up everything as quick as often as possible to iCloud.
Yes, the lesson is backup in general. If you're using cloud-based storage, so with the iPhone, iPhone, iPad, Mac automatically interface with iCloud. You can use Google, you can use Dropbox, you can use OneDrive. Just have your stuff on the cloud as well as on your device, so that if your device were to take an unfortunate fall, you don't lose anything.
Yeah. And what about folks? I hear a lot of times, and I know this, but I'm not. I know some people that watching may not know this, but when they think of the cloud as being insecure or not something that they can rely on in terms of being stable or secure in general, how secure is the cloud in terms of their information?
Well, let me add, the bigger question is iCloud is secured by someone's on the iPhone. It's secured by Face ID or a fingerprint. It's secured by your password to your phone, and it's secured by your Apple ID password. So if your password is password123, then it's probably not all that great. If your password is uppercase, lowercase, number, special characters, 13, 14, 15 characters, then it's just fine. Apple makes it very clear that their focus is on privacy, not selling ads. Does that mean that there's none? No, but it means that Apple is a lot more secure in a lot of ways than, say, Google is.
Yeah.
And full disclosure, I use Google. My business email is Google.
Yep. So the second story that I think about when I think about you serving clients that jumps out at me is a mutual friend of ours almost lost all his family pictures and baby pictures on vacation one time, I believe. That was a
He
funny
wasn't
story.
on vacation. If it's who I'm thinking of, he got very frustrated when his phone didn't respond the way he wanted to, and he threw it really hard on the floor. His son was 6 months old at the time, and all of his baby pictures were on that phone, not backed up to the cloud. So I had him meet me near an Apple store. We got a store to put a new screen on the phone just long enough to get everything backed up to a computer, and then we restored everything to a new device for him. That was about 4.5 years ago now. But he was incredibly grateful because you can't get those pictures back. Once they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah. And his wife probably would have killed him if he didn't do that. So
What was that?
I said his wife probably would have killed him if he didn't get that done. So that's another thing to think about
Oh,
too.
without a doubt.
Yeah. So what about you? I mean, other than stories I've shared, what are some like standout stories that you remember, client stories that you really helped someone and really made a difference in their day to day, their business, their life?
There have been any number of times where husband is getting wife's text messages, kids getting parents' text messages. I guess it was about a month ago, a lady came to me to help her get her information off her son's iPhone after he passed away. And I was able to help them get the information, use it the way they needed to use it, and then wipe that phone, but help her have all of his information indefinitely.
Yeah, that
And
sounds.
no, I didn't compromise his security or anyone else's.
No, I know you wouldn't. But that sounds like a pretty sensitive situation, obviously, with having a child who passed and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I work with with a couple of financial advisors who refer me as well to some of their senior clients who are a little bit less than technologically savvy, but in every case, it's usually help them get from point A to point B to point C. When I started working with you, Drew, one of the first things you asked me is, what's your why? And I have to say that my why is helping people go, now I can do what I need to do. Gives me pride to know that I'm helping make other people's lives better.
And that's really powerful, man. And you mentioned that we're us working together. Just full disclosure, Brian is a former client of mine, and is also a good friend, like I said. But you don't just work with individuals, and I think that's pretty cool too. You also work with businesses and business owners, right? How are the challenges different, or are they pretty much the same between business owners and individuals?
I tend to work with small business, independent and solopreneurs, and um, individuals. How are the challenges aren't really different, except they're using the computers for a different purpose. But most of the time, I'm being brought in because something is not working. They've tried free support, and for whatever reason, it hasn't worked. They want someone who will walk them through and hold their hand from step A to B to C, all the way to the end of whatever the project is. It's more a question of, how can I help other people? How can I do what they need me to do?
Yeah. And so when you're working with folks on, in terms of like the step by step and when do they call you kind of thing, I also know that you say call Apple first, see what they can do, but then they Apple tends to direct people to try to just buy a new device, right?
That's when people usually reach out, is they either don't want to go into the Genius Bar, they've tried Apple, who goes immediately to wipe your computer, wipe your phone, and just start over with your saved information. A lot of people can't or won't do that. Or in the case of a lot of the professionals I work with, I do work with a lot of realtors, they don't have the time to spend 6, 8, 10 hours troubleshooting. They would much rather pay someone to come to them and work with them on what they need when they need it. I have one of those tomorrow morning.
Nice. Yeah, and the other thing too is like the alternative of working with you is also, looking at saying, okay, buy a whole new device, right? I mean, you're talking about a whole new computer, which is another $2,000 or $3,000. Might as well spend a couple $100 working with you, get that resolved, and save the old computer, right?
Well, it depends on how old the computer is. The person I was working with earlier today had a 2016 computer that needed to upgrade because it had hardware problems. I worked with somebody just earlier this week who had a 2013 that's still up and kicking, and we just upgraded the software, and they're happy to use that computer for 2 or 3 more years. So it really depends on the person. I have no problem supporting older tech as long as you understand that the older tech's not going to do everything that the newer is.
Right. I mean, yeah, obviously there are going to be limitations to just technology in general, right, when they're older. So, cool, man. So as folks kind of want to reach out to you, we'll put your contact information below, but you work nationwide in terms of, is Canada included in that as well? Or would you?
I can. I have not very much. I have a couple of people I've worked with in Canada, but not as many. But yes, I can work with people who are using Apple technology and having difficulties. It's much more, I don't speak Spanish or French or German, so it's people that are English speaking.
Right.
More than it is where they actually are.
Got it. So then as we wrap up here, I always ask people this last question that I want to ask you as well as a business owner, going through the journeys you go through and working with folks. Who have been the one or two most influential people in your life, in your business journey as you've gone through this?
Can I list 3 people?
Yeah.
One of the more influential, and I will give you a little pat on the back here, working with you, Drew, was a major influence in helping me change my life, from when I started working with you to where I am today. My friend Claude is probably one of the 2 biggest influences on me, as is Kirk. They both retaught me how to run my business, how to interact with people, how to be a leader. I rebuilt my life from the ground up about 7 years ago, and they were the ones who taught me how to become the person that I am today. And Drew, you helped me get through a lot of leftovers from my past that were holding me back. And between the three of you, I owe all three of you my life and my business with where I am today.
Well, I appreciate that, Brian. And honestly, I'm honored that you mentioned me in that group, because I do know Claude and Kirk as solid people and really influential in where where they got you to be. So I'm happy to be part of your journey and happy to continue supporting you as I can. But yeah, if folks want to reach out to Brian, he's an amazing resource. Anyone who has been his client before or even knows him as a person knows the value he brings to the table and how much care he takes when he's working with clients. So please do reach out to Brian. His contact information will be below. But Brian, any last minute thoughts you want to close with before we end here?
I just want to thank you for having me on today, Drew. It's a pleasure to be chatting with you like this.
Likewise, man. Thanks for taking the time to be here and be a resource for folks. So
I'm happy to help.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Stay safe. Have a great 4th of July. And yeah, we'll see you soon.